Okay, here we go. Welcome, Nancy. Nancy. For those who won't have connected with, I haven't had Nancy on before, so most people won't be aware of Nancy, my community. But Nancy and I go back quite a long way, actually. I was thinking about this morning. It might be 10, 11 years since we first met. And the interesting thing is that when we met, we were in the corporate environment. We were right in the middle of the matrix there, selling mobile phones. So this is why I thought it'd be really interesting to get Nancy on. We've been friends for a number of years. We shared a lot along our journeys, and it's been interesting actually because we've both grown up a hell of a lot over the last decade, but we've both gone in slightly different directions. But healing has been, I would say, the foundation of our journey in recent years, and stepping into purpose, stepping into service for others as well, for everything we've been through and everything we've learned along the way. So, first time I've had someone on the podcast who's a genuine friend and someone we've shared a lot with over 10 years. So we can go quite deep, up to Nancy really. But her journey, as I said, is very interesting because she's gone from that corporate space, done a lot of healing herself over the years, and lots of different modalities actually that she now brings to her work with others as well. So it should be a really interesting one. But yes, as I said, thanks for joining, Nancy, or New as I call you.
Yeah.
But let's go into it then. Let's go into it because, as I say, we met each other probably 10 years ago. We're selling mobile phones. We're in corporate. And so you can relate to a lot of where my audience find themselves in a similar space where they'd love to explore their purpose. They'd love to experience more passion and energy in their work, but they're feeling a little bit blocked on their path. So a little bit about your story then. Where would you like to pick it up? Where would you like to start in terms of how you made this huge transition into the work you do now?
Yeah. Yeah. Firstly, thank you so much. Honestly, it's actually 13 years
13.
since
Wow.
we met, but yeah, yeah, all of the conversations and the journey and my sort of ums and ahs of how to sort of move into a different world, a healing world, really, initially, not realizing the transformation that would happen years later. But for me, you know, reflectively, so as many of us had lived through a lot of challenging experiences and trauma through my early days, and then felt myself being, as the youngest sibling, sort of finding myself wanting to be like my older sister. Okay, if she's doing it, it must be the right thing to do. And almost like, we are all a product of our experiences. We're all a product of how we've the environment we've been in and how we've experienced that through various different ways. And that was me really, and that's what the eyes that I was living through. What looked good for somebody else, I wanted to be that too, or I thought I did. The one thing that I've always been aware of, though, is that feeling. That's been since as long as I can remember, this feeling that something's not quite right, the feeling that I am not aligned to this. This doesn't feel purposeful. And the other feeling that I knew I was supposed to be of service to others, that I knew in what capacity, in what way, when, how, I didn't know. But that's what I knew was missing, and I could feel it in my core. And it's easy to look back and go, okay, these are all the different scenarios where I could have made a different decision, and I could have perhaps, taken a leap of faith a bit more. But when in all of this work I do, the biggest thing I noticed is that timing is always right, always. And the synchronicities, the signs, the messages, the moment, whatever, all the things that had to line up for you to be where you are. And now I look back, it was all just about following that, really. And I needed that corporate life. It's not without knowing. It's all the skills that I've learned in being in that environment. And so I look back and I think, okay, I wouldn't be able to do all of these things in order to build my business. I've got 3 now, in order to build these businesses. Had I not been in the corporate world, would I have those transferable skills? So there is a place for it. There's also a place for gratitude we're all plugged into a system, unless you live indigenous, then we're all plugged
Yeah.
into a system, and that is run by money, right? So,
Yeah.
there is gratitude in knowing that the corporate world does also give you that stability for that period of time. So it's right when when it's right. But something somebody said to me is, it is until it isn't. And then
Mm.
and then my biggest moment, and I think everybody, perhaps will have that moment when they really realize, and it is, good decade of conversations with you of, you're going to give this a go, you're going to give this a go. And then on February 24th, I think 3 years ago, I had plant medicine. And for me,
Mm.
the moment I woke up in the morning or got up for my tea, life was never, ever the same again. I realized in that night fully what I'm capable of. I could see, what being of service to people could look like, could feel like, could be like. And then suddenly everything changed. Everything changed. My choices from that moment, everything was transformed. Um, but yeah, and now I'm here. So that's my journey.
That's really interesting. I mean, I've probably got a similar story. That calling, just a feeling of, I know there's more. Like, I know I want to actually do something more productive in my work, like help people, make a difference. After 20 years in advertising,
Yeah.
just a sense that quiet voice saying, this isn't, there's got to be more to work than this. And I'd kind of I've been healing myself for 10 years, as you know, work with the plant medicines. And it's really I think, yeah, I think I introduced you to, well, we're talking about ayahuasca in this instance, aren't we? I think, was I there on that first ceremony you went to? I'm not sure, because we've obviously done lots of ceremonies together and ceremonies apart.
Yeah.
But it was interesting that I went to a ceremony since, and you kind of came up when I was in that space, and the medicine seemed to say to me, "Thank you for introducing me to Nancy. I've got it from here." It was kind of like, you don't need to do anything else. I can guide it from here, and a bit similar to you. I mean, I went initially to ayahuasca to heal myself, my own mental health challenges, as I've talked about many times on this podcast. But an interesting side effect of that was also, for me, and we were talking about a female energy in particular here, but she can accelerate that journey towards purpose, in shedding a lot of your old conditioning, your old traumas. Essentially, I always say that your purpose is in there. And purpose really, for me, is an inner journey of clearing
Yeah.
away all the layers that you aren't, that you built up for your life, and getting down to the core of who you are. And then for a lot of people, it kind of just is revealed. I always say you've got to feel purpose before you know it, before you know what that path is for you. You have to feel on purpose. Otherwise, all these layers that we build up for our lives are kind of blocking the way, really. But yes, plant medicine certainly can accelerate that journey towards purpose, as done for you. But still, it takes. This is what I want to get to. Is it still takes? I mean, you were in sales, weren't you? Which I love that what you said about that gratitude for that
Yeah.
journey. Same with me. In advertising, I learned a lot of skills that help me with my business today. And sales is one of the most important skills you can learn in running a business. So it obviously all came together beautifully in the end for you. But still, there's a
Yeah.
big step that you made in recent years where you decided to leave that world behind and step into your business or businesses. That I imagine took a lot of courage. So I'm really interested in that. Still, what came up for you in that
Yeah.
step, and what? Because for me, the journey has been building the business on the side and then stepping into it. For you just seemed to go, I'm done with that. I'm stepping
Yeah.
straight into the business. So what was that? What was that kind of step like for you?
So I didn't have a business. I didn't even have an idea, to be honest.
Exactly.
I qualified as an NLP practitioner because NLP has always fascinated me, and I had that in the background, but I didn't really know how to progress anything with it, especially while I was in the corporate world. I handed in my notice with nothing to go to. I don't know. I wish I could tell you why, and I knew what, the risks, as we call them, but something was just, I'm done. And I'll be honest, it was a little bit of a leap in faith because I've never, ever not just got a job. I've never interviewed and not got the job. And, in telecoms, especially, or in technology, it's quite, everybody seems to know each other in the industries. I've been in it for a long time. So I had a bit of faith that actually I'm just going to take a moment and then I'll just go back into it. I didn't stop in order to start my own thing. I just knew I just couldn't get up and do this anymore. Not right now. I need a break. Because this feeling was just getting too strong, and I just knew that this isn't purposeful to me. Do you know, it's also what your intention is. For me, you know, if you work in sales and technology, money is no problem really. It's there for the grabs. So that isn't my motivation, and that's the difference, right? For me, money doesn't mean things. For me, money doesn't mean a big house and a fancy car. For me, money, it's because we're plugged into a system, but also it gives me adventures, it gives me travel, it gives me ways, you know, exchange in ways of healing. It gives me these moments of experiencing life. And that's what, so I knew that. So I knew that it didn't have to be a job that was going to give me what it was financially for it to be purposeful.
Yes.
And then my brother became sick, and he lives in South Africa. And I had to then think, okay, I can't really apply for a job right now because I'm going to go to South Africa and I'm going to be with him for a couple of months. And that's in a couple of months' time. I can't find a job that's going to let me have 2 months off so soon. So I thought I'll leave it. While I'm in Cape Town, I will look for work for when I come back. And market just didn't exist. Nothing was there. There were no jobs. There were no opportunities. And I'm like, this has never happened in all my years. What is happening? And so I just thought, I'm going to just step aside from it. And then I spoke to a really good friend of mine, and he said to me, burn your lifeboats. What is it that you actually want?
Yeah.
And then burn your lifeboats. And I sat there and I thought, what is it? I want to be of service. And how? How do I want to be of service? And what skills do I have right now? Where are my interests? And all I have is this NLP, that I can coach people with. But what am I going to do with that? So I sat there and I named Kamala. It's the name means lotus in Indian. And that's as far as I got. A little bit of a plan, a little bit. I knew I wanted it to be also with groups of people coming together, like a share, in some way. But that's all I had really. But what I did know was that I had to burn my lifeboats. And every time I was logging on to look for a job, I stopped myself. Right. Because this isn't it. Spend that time now on Kamala. But I want to look for a job. So that means you've got time. You've got an hour. Put it in Kamala. And that's really was about me just moving that mindset over to go, instead of going back to what I knew, and changing the words self-sabotage. It can sound like you're doing something so negative, to trying to protect myself, because that's what you're doing. You're not sabotaging necessarily. You're going back to the safe place. So you're just trying to be safe and everything that you've known and where you thought you liked being. But instead of trying to keep myself safe, I wanted to jump through it. And that was another thing on ayahuasca. She said to me, just on the other side of fear, there is beauty. And for me, that's never left my mind, not for one day. Every time, like just coming on to hear the nerves and how I might come across or look or be, I was like, okay, I feel nervous. I feel scared. This is good. This is where I should be, because that's what she said. And just on the other side of fear, there is beauty. And that's what I've just carried with me. Burn your lifeboats and look on the other side of fear. But I didn't have a plan at all. Mark, my first workshop, nobody came to it. Nobody, I still went and sat in my space, had a little cry. And now I look back, I just think I'm not even the same person as the person who arranged that. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, we hear this so often in entrepreneurship, isn't it? Burn the boats. I think it can work for some people. Yeah. I think for some people, the kind of overwhelms the nervous system, and I don't always. I think it works for some people, but for some other people, I don't necessarily recommend that, because what it does is it throws you into a dysregulated place, and you're building a business from dysregulation and overwhelm and fear and lack and all that stuff, and that energy going into the business, you get that reflected back to you in the people that show up. But it does work for some people. They just go, I'm going to get this 6 months. You can always go back to a job if you need it, can't you? There'll always be a job available to you. So
absolutely,
that is some part, but you have to feel into, okay, what feels right for me? For some people, it is building slowly on the side of a career, which obviously then you can't give as much time as you'd like to a business, but you've got the stability, financial stability, so that you're not building from this place of, oh, I've got to make it work, and desperation and lack, but it sounds like you made it work, which is amazing. Yes. Well, let's go into it then.
That's exactly it,
Sorry, go ahead. Go on.
That would have been my ideal, was to do it alongside something else. That was my plan. But it's like I was taken that way, and that's how it's always felt to me.
Yes. I love that the plants helped you with that as well. They kind of guide you on that journey. That's been a big part of my journey as well. Well, let's go into the specific modalities then that helped you, and now that you brought together into Kamala, because it isn't just like most people will go, I'm a breathwork practitioner, or I hold cacao ceremonies, but you kind of have managed to bring in a whole series of different practices and methodologies into Kamala. So how did that come about then, and how do you kind of merge them all into this one umbrella, if you like?
Yeah. I started with, for some reason, I'd never ever received Reiki before in my life. I didn't really know enough about energy work. My real belief system was starting to build around everything that I was being shown with the plants, and the oneness, our interconnectedness, the universe experiencing itself through us. Like, this is where I was. And I guess then that directed me to energy in some way, but I found this incredible teacher and mentor, and that's when I started with Reiki. So that's all I was doing initially. And then in my group sessions, I would take people through every week meditation and share Reiki, and I was really seeing some big transformations one-to-one. I'll be honest with you, Mark, for me, it wasn't about fine-tuning one single modality. It was something that you said to me a very long time ago, in your house, actually. You said to me, Nancy, what is it that you want? And I didn't know. I didn't know how I wanted to be of service. And you said, if you don't know, then who is it you want to help? And then even then, I didn't know how to single out one persona of person. And you said to me, find all of the versions of you, find them and help them. And so for me, I'm working in modalities that I'm passionate about, I love and I believe in, and that could be 100 modalities, but who I'm helping, synchronicity is there, of course, is exactly what you said. All of the versions of myself, and the energy has just brought them to me. And that's exactly what I'm doing. So it was more about fine tuning who I'm helping. And that's just happening organically rather than in what way am I helping. But that's when I first started with the energy and just seeing like the transformation, the change, if it's physical pain, emotional pain, even if it's just to calm the mind through the thoughts, the mindset, just sitting with the energies and sitting with Reiki was really, really transformative. As my journey went on and I started to do this more and more, I started to see that I have an additional gift, which I don't know what to call it. I don't know what it is, but I'm able to visually see journeys when I'm with people and I'm sitting in their energy and holding space. I'm able to experience very similar or the same journey as the other person is experiencing. And I'm able to start to help them to unpick and unweave things. And this is why I've gone into additional modalities and where else can I weave this? And it's about shining the light. I sat in talking therapy at one point in my life for 4 years. There is 100% a place for talking therapies. Yes. There is just also a place for everything that I work in as well. And it's about shining the light for new ways to heal. Just, and I still am so open to them. I'm trying all new things myself all the time.
Yeah, I love that, because that's where most people start, isn't it? I mean, when I started my mental health issues, I went down the kind of traditional Western routes, and it was all about psychotherapy and counseling and medication. And, I just realized quite quickly that wasn't doing it for me. But I know for some people that works pretty well. So it is a journey of exploring different paths, isn't it? Like, okay, try that one. Doesn't feel right. Or I try that one. Oh, there's something here, and I tried the whole spiritual supermarket, basically. I went into Buddhism, and then I went into plant medicine, shamanism, and then on to energy work. And I just tried the whole lot, which I think you have to do. because what I found with on the Western route was you go to the doctor and it's like, try this pill. That didn't work. Try this pill. It works for a bit, and now it's not working. Okay, double the dose. And it's like I could see where it was going. I'm basically just numbing myself to my experience, which I just felt like was the classic band-aid on a bullet wound. So I knew there was somewhere deeper to go. But talk therapy is a great place to start. The last thing we want to do is just bottle this stuff up. So talking about it can bring it to the surface. What I found is you also need a way to feel through it. Like the talking can bring the energy to the surface, but if you don't process it by feeling it, it will just go back inside the system. So you're kind of re-traumatizing your nervous system over and over again. But very simply, my coaching modality now is we talk about it and then we go in and we feel through it to process the energy. So whatever modality we choose, we need a way to come to the body and feel through it, whether that's breath work or any of the modalities you're talking about. But I can't remember talking to you about this, but that's a really good bit of advice I gave you, because this is now a module in my Pathway to Purpose program, which is about the ideal client. And a great place to start is, okay, you 3 years ago or you 5 years ago, because you know that person, you know the pain points, you know what they're dealing with. So if you talk about those issues in your marketing, whatever that is, then the person that resonates will be drawn to you. So yeah, that's a great place to start. Like if you don't know who your ideal client would be, then focus on yourself 3 years ago and the problems you were experiencing, the challenges that you overcame, in order to help that person move to where they want to get to in life. So that's a great place to start. So of those different modalities, do you find that a certain modality will work for a particular challenge, like you breathwork or Kundalini, or talks about cacao? Do you cater them depending on the individual person's unique challenges that they're dealing with?
Yeah. To a certain degree, I can also tell really who, for example, breath work, it's very physical. It takes a lot of work. A Kundalini activation can take us to a very similar space. But then there's some surrender involved without that physical work. And some people find it easier when they can feel something to surrender, as opposed to almost laying there and just being. The idea really with everything I do is having an awareness of how layered we are, and that the solutions are never external. So in everything that I do, there's a lot of people who use the word healer, and that's absolutely fine. I just say I'm a space holder, because from my perspective, the work I do personally is I am holding space. It's my opinion that the people who come to me are almost healing themselves, because I could hold space forever and maybe no changes happen in their lives ultimately, because the work happens off the mat, really. The integration, what am I going to do with this now? We both know, after even plant medicine, that's where the work happens. But it's about being aware and having an acknowledgement really for how layered we are. And so we start from the external, and having that then accountability to start to look inwards. And that is for everything is inward. Everything, our loneliness, our fears, our beliefs, our judgment towards others, it's nothing to do with them. Everything is a question of, okay, I'm doing that, what does that mean for how I feel about me? And that's the work I do, is everything brings us in. A lot of it, I even, we wear masks because the darkness helps us to go in. Everything I do is about coming in and connecting with self. Who am I? Your true I am. And this acceptance of everything is, and so then we can keep going to our corporate jobs, but we feel differently about going. And then that's the bit that might align us to starting that second thing simultaneously. What do we call stress? What do we call anxiety? Changing that language with ourselves. And this is where everything blends in. How do we change the language? How do we change the thoughts? How do we change, take more control over how we feel? And then we get to turn up differently to these environments, decisions, and choices. So it really is about what the person's outcome or goal is, if I am to sort of recommend which modality.
I like what you said there about that term healer. I mean, I've always felt this. I would never call myself a healer. I call myself a coach or a guide. But to me, yes, the healing is done by the person. But also, I've worked with real healers. I've worked with people
Yeah,
who
yeah,
are, or I would call a healer, indigenous people who I've
yeah,
got a lineage of this work, and you work with them, and some of the stuff they're doing, you've got no idea what's going on there, but you feel the difference. Healers in the
yeah,
UK and over in South America as well, and you just know, okay, I'm not drawn to that path, which I would call classical healing, and the skills that come with that. But
yeah,
still, I'm saying I can facilitate and hold a space for healing to occur. And really, three essentials for healing
right,
I've come to realize. Number one, bringing mind and body to rest. So you can't heal when you're lying on the sofa watching Netflix, or you can do some processing when you're walking around a forest, for example. But I think true healing happens when we surrender, which means bringing mind and body to rest. And for me, that only happens when you are in the presence of another grounded and stable nervous system. So that's when we say, somebody who's never heard that term before, holding space. You can do it being physically present, but you can also do it on a Zoom call. Because for me, energy works beyond time and space. So whether I'm in the same room as somebody,
yeah,
I've got one client who comes to my house, or I've got another client who in the past who was in Australia, but still you can sense their energy. You can feel, for example, if you're on a call with someone on the other side of the world, you can sense when they're in a grounded place, or if they were to start shouting and screaming, you could sense when they're dysregulated. So you can still template their energetic system, which is really important, because only when we feel safe and supported and connected does the body truly relax, and does the mind start to unwind. And then healing for me is something just happens naturally. The body, the nervous system is always trying to bring
yeah,
itself back into harmony and balance, but because we're always meddling with the mind and thinking and planning and doing, that doesn't have a chance to happen. And so we're always in this kind of fight or flight or dysregulated place. Most people are. If you're in, certainly if you're working in a traditional corporate environment, everyone's in fight or flight, everyone's dysregulated, and it's just complete chaos. And then when we come into the evenings, all we're good for really, we're so drained, all we can do is watch Netflix. Then we want to sleep we want to sleep afterwards, and we can't
exactly.
sleep, and so this is stuck in this cycle of overwhelm and dysregulation. So that's why it's essential, and I'm always saying this on my posts. Our own healing, our ongoing healing and well-being has to be number one priority, particularly if you're what I would call a leader, building a business, leading a team,
Yeah,
um, you know, um,
yeah,
caring for a family. They're all kind of leadership roles, and so we have to prioritize our own ongoing healing and well-being to be of service to others, to be of support to others. And I guess you would say the same, Nancy. Healing has to be the foundation, which is so often I see missing in the entrepreneurial space or the coaching space. There isn't enough talk about well-being and healing, in my experience.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, you see, I mean, the body keeps score, right? So even if you look at anything that in your past or reflectively, we can see that when we ignore the signs, eventually the body screams and shouts and lets us know that we need to slow down. And I read something
Mm,
recently, and it said um, that you have 1,000 problems, for example, but when it's your health, there's only one.
mm,
And this is exactly it. If we do not put ourselves first, then the loudest thing to us might be our physical health, the wider impact of that, because a lot of us can live or attempt to live silently with our own inward journey or our own healing or our own mental health. But then eventually that disconnect creates the body to get involved with those signs and signals and the want to slow down. But this is the point, I think, of bringing everything inward, is reminding ourselves of ourselves and reminding ourselves that we don't have to live in this state of fight or flight.
mm.
It doesn't have to be, I'm going to wake up tomorrow, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to just start, I don't know, hitting people with leaves, and that's what I'm going to love doing because it's healing people. It doesn't have to be that sort of transactional, but during the period of just knowing that there's something different for me, knowing that this isn't my path that I'm aligned to, but I'm heading in the right direction, and staying in that corporate role for the time being, for example, it doesn't have to feel overwhelming. It doesn't have to feel like stress if we turn up for ourselves and we continue the work. Stepping away and coming into the work that I do now, some of the hardest stuff is that sort of the mirror work almost. I set an intention in the room for those who are coming to my space, but what I didn't know originally was energetically that intention always comes back to me. And I didn't realize that until I started to hold space, and some things became really, really challenging, really eye-opening of ways that I needed to heal. And so it's so important, whatever your role is, that you start with you, and that you remember that, that it's about turning up for yourself every day. Something little that I've started doing the last couple of months is just how is it that I want to start my day and finish it? And don't let that include a screen of any context. How do I want to start it, and how do I want to finish it? And you've sort of inspired me in terms of starting it with that meditation, or just sitting and being. Sometimes I stand at my back door and I just look up at the sky because it's still dark and it's my cup of tea. Whatever it is, how do I want to start? And if a phone or screen doesn't exist, now what? Now what am I going to do with that period of time? And the same when I end my day with a book, and then I lay and I meditate for a little while, or I just list gratitude until I go to sleep. So those two things aren't asking you to find more time. They aren't asking for anything really, just to get up the same and go to bed the same. But it's transformational because you're starting with yourself. And this is the biggest thing that I can't say enough is, it's got to be about you.
And I love what you said there. But it's when you say you, it's also the true you. You could say that the true I, because that is what I find really important, is having a way to come back to me. And when I say me, I don't mean Mark and the personality structure. I mean the real me, which you could say is the same for all of us. You could call it awareness, you could call it soul or spirit if you want. But for me, it's just that sense of that part of me that is connected to everything. And we can talk about this kind of stuff all day, but you have to have a direct experience of that. And this for me is essential on my own path of entrepreneurship now, and looking after my family or whatever it might be. Have regular points in the day where I can come back to the essence of me, the true me, beyond all the changing, the thoughts and the emotions and everything, all that kind of stuff. Beyond that is the true you, when the mind and body come to rest, as I said. And it is so much about discipline and routine, I think. We have to build that into our day. So for me, it's 30 minutes meditation, start of the day, yoga, gratitude, meditation. No matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, that is my non-negotiable. And then I will try and get a 30-minute walk at least in the middle of the day. And then I'll do what I call a mini, but that's basically presence in my community. So sitting with another or in a group environment, which I find very powerful as well, just to have those different grounded nervous systems to reflect. And so exactly what you said, in a start the day with connecting to me, to find that alignment, that balance. In the middle of the day, then I have a break to, again, just kind of, because, building a business, it does involve a lot of work. And then at the end of the day, again, connecting to me before I go to sleep. So that's what I wanted to move on to, really, is for a busy professional, for example, or entrepreneur, how do we build in? Because also what I'll do is every few months, then I'll go to, for example, to the Brecon Beacons, and I'll work with plant medicine, or I'll go and, attend a plant medicine ceremony with some other powerful teachers or healers that I know. So how does that work for you, Nancy? You mentioned a bit about, the meditation practices. Do you then go and, work with another practitioner in terms of your own healing at the same time?
Yeah, I do. And actually, and again, trying different things. And I've just tried two brand new forms of healing actually in the last couple of weeks, which have just been out of this world. So everything is just constantly amazing when you're open to trying all these things. I think it also depends on how I've held space. If I've held space for others, especially when it's one-to-one, it could be a little bit more intense. Then I'll always get out for that, to connect with the ground, connect with the earth, connect with what's around me. And this really, forms a lot of my belief system. So that's really important to me, the how I start and how I finish. And, forgiveness. So with gratitude, it's every day for me, absolutely through the day. And when I feel like today's, what we would traditionally call not a good day or a more challenging day, I then find myself going, well, what was good about today? And what were the lessons if it wasn't great? What did I actually learn? Because on reflection, that's all that anything challenging has ever been, has been a lesson for
Yes.
me. So let me learn it quicker. So that's really where I go with that. And then, yeah, just to sort of bring myself back to the breath always. And that's something I'll always take the first thing when I get messages from clients in a state of urgency. That's the biggest thing, the most instantly transformative thing, is to come back to the breath. And that really, you see, everything is always coming back to self. It's always the answer. And it's the most profound thing of, why won't I sit in silence with myself? What is it that I don't want to sit with? What is it that I don't want to hear or see or feel? And those questions, that asking yourself, that is where you get those answers. And when I was in a little bit of life's okay, I thought, let me just actually look at this a little bit deeper. Not that I don't want life to be okay. I just quite like to explore where I can do more healing. But, and life is good. Life is really good. But sometimes I might think, okay, I'm actually passing a little bit of judgment. And what I did have was compare and despair with some other people. But
Yes.
how can I bring that inwards? And I would sit in meditation and ask that question. Why am I doing that? Why do I feel that way? What's coming up for me? In what way am I doubting myself? And then the answers, they just come flying. And okay, what can I do with that? And honoring the emotions. But it's a journey for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, isn't it? In each and every moment, whatever you're doing, there's always a way back to yourself, which is the present moment, basically. I just listened to a video last night by Eckhart Tolle. He was saying the same thing, which is, if you go to an airport, for example, and you're waiting for your next flight, and you look around, the day we live in today, everyone's on their phones. Everyone's just, because there's constant distraction available. You can constantly be doing something, which obviously takes you away from your awareness of the present moment. And he said, maybe you go to an airport and there's 99 people who are doing exactly the same thing, which is staring at their phones. And I do this as well. I'm not like some perfect, awakened master or anything. But he said you might find one person who is just sat and just taking in their situation, taking in the lights, taking in the feel of the ground beneath their feet, just coming back to the present moment. It's very rare to find that. And that kind of got me thinking as well, like, because what he was saying is that waiting is basically, you're unhappy with your present moment experience and you're looking for the next moment to gratify you, so even if you're like boiling the kettle. So it's something I notice is when I'm washing up, I'm like, I want to get this done as quickly as possible. I want to move on to the next thing. So it's always like, I want to escape the present moment. I can't be with the present moment. And I've kind of had to work on that constantly. Okay, can I be with what's happening right now? The feel of the plate or the water or the heat of the water. Can I come back to what I'm doing right now? Because that's all we'll ever really have is the present moment. And why I like how you mentioned that is because that's probably that's probably the most significant shift I've seen in you, which the past version of you was always wanting to be around people, always wanting to be busy, doing, distracted in some way, which we all fall into. But for me to hear you talk about this now is like a completely different human being. The fact that in the past, I would say you weren't particularly wanting or happy to be on your own, but now you're able to do that, which is an amazing shift. Just being able to be with yourself in silence. And look inward without distraction, to be able to do that is a massive evolution for a human being, I think. So it shows the kind of journey you've been on in the last 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what else I've realized with that? And I know I keep saying it, but it's just about this connection with self. And what that gives you as well is an awareness of the journey while you're in it. And the problem is that when we disconnect from ourselves and we achieve whatever we call success, whatever that is to you as an individual, when you get there, you don't even know. You're just on to the next thing
Yeah.
unless you connect with self. And it's not, you're not just aware that you've got there, you're aware of the growth and the journey and the lessons and the ebbs and the flows, and you are in it. And then we learn our lessons a lot quicker. But we get to stay with our intention. We get to stay in our lane of what is it that we truly want and why are we doing this? But when we are only aiming for that success and there is that disconnect from ourselves, there's no real acknowledgement for how far you've come. You don't get to experience the beauty and power in your journey. And that's, been really transformational. But that's been a gift of, me finding that space to sit with myself, for sure. And even in the little moments of going, wow, like 12 months ago, I didn't realize I'd have what I have and be doing what I'm doing. And for me, this is a dream and I'm living it. And I'm so grateful. I'm also so aware of the work I've put into it, but I get to turn up to that and not be like, sort of defined by feelings of overwhelm or this is a lot, I get to just turn up as today brings me what it exactly is, what it's supposed to, and align with that energy and honor other things, especially as a woman, honor other things that are going on through, the weeks, the months, the year, whatever, and just be mindful of that. But yeah, absolutely, just to be so connected with yourself that you get to, I know that you said on one of your podcasts, I wrote it down here somewhere because I really liked it. I wrote it down the other day. I don't know where the paper is now, but love the journey of growth. And that really stayed with me when you said that, because I think you can only really do that when you're truly connected with yourself.
Yes, I remember talking about, I think it was in the last podcast, myself and Thomas were talking about that, which is if you're only focused on the future goal, then happiness and fulfillment will always be out of reach, because you're always like exactly what I was talking about. Eckhart Tolle talked about waiting. It's like this: I will be happy when I reach that goal. And of course, if it's an external goal, then what happens is you have this hit of dopamine. I've achieved it, and then it fades, and then you're left feeling exactly the same. So it's like, what do you do then? Quick, next goal. Okay. And then it takes you another 10 years to hit that goal. And in those 10 years, you've never felt truly happy and fulfilled. But if you can, love the journey, in other words, you can love the challenges that come up and see them as opportunities to continually heal and evolve yourself, then it means that you will never, number one, you'll always be fulfilled where you're at, because it's always like, great, some difficult stuff. Okay, I get to feel through this, and the more I do that, the more I expand my awareness. Fantastic. Number two, and this brings me on to the other fact what you talked about, is this purpose. So I categorize purpose into two aspects, which I'll talk about quite a lot, which is the outer purpose. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with external goals. There's nothing wrong with wanting to achieve, experience more wealth. Nothing wrong with wanting to grow a business, more clients, whatever it might be. But this is where inner purpose comes in. So I've got my outer purpose to build this business, whatever it is for you, to serve this amount of people, or whatever it might be, to progress in your career. Fantastic. But it has to be grounded in what I call inner purpose. Inner purpose is what we've been talking about. Is this work of turning inward, healing yourself, raising awareness of your conditioning. So too many people, I think, when they think about purpose, they think about the external purpose, which is, I want to achieve that thing, which is no problem with that. But if you haven't got the inner purpose of how to be with yourself along the way, then you'll never be happy, and you'll always be liable to overwhelm and burnout, which is what a lot of entrepreneurs and professionals experience, because they don't have that way to process the emotions that you're able to do through the inner healing work. So you've always got to have that balance between the outer purpose and the inner purpose, or doing and being, which is how I like to frame it.
Yeah, agreed. And I think this road is a lot more difficult without those in unison. Because if your outer purpose is money, then you can get that anywhere. But there's this feeling that it's not right, and what I'm not doing is right, and that's sitting on the inner version of you, the inner purpose. And if you want to align with that, then you've got to change your awareness and where that is. It's like I said earlier, in my sales role, money's not a problem. You're working in telecoms and sales, it's there. But if that's all that you're going for, you will never have that true feeling of fulfillment. You're right. And it's because your inner purpose, yes, has some answers of what your life's path might be or what's going to make you feel truly fulfilled and aligned. But also because it allows you to, as we've said, it allows you to be present along the journey when you are aligned with your inner purpose, or at least aware of it. And then, I sit with manifestation all the time. I live my life on vision boards and letters to myself and everything else I can do. And not yet has it not been fulfilled. Not yet has something not even been on this podcast is on my vision board. Like literally, not yet have I put something on there that hasn't come to it. But it works both ways. And so when we sit with that inner purpose, we also get to truly manifest that feeling of being. What does it feel like? I know that you have always worked with what my ideal day feels like, looks like, smells like, tastes like, sounds like, all of those things. And then that's really this inner awareness of what does it feel like when I'm there. That's where the magic is, I think. That's where the true magic is.
Yeah, we're going to. In fact, that leads me like the next week's podcast is going to be with a coach I know called Kevin, who's going to talk about exactly this, what we call conscious manifestation. So it's a great time of year to be looking at this because, as Nancy said, writing about your ideal day, it's not like, but you don't want to get too attached to it. I did that exercise 6 years ago. And it's amazing how my life has shifted, but it's not exactly like I've written my ideal day, my life now. So you don't want to get too attached to it. What it's about is generating the feelings associated with that ideal day, because your way you feel is your point of attraction. So the more you can generate those feelings of, if you write about your ideal day, it might feel abundant, it might feel connected, it might feel aligned, it might feel inspired, whatever comes with this vision of your ideal day, where you're living, who you're spending time with, the work you're doing. But then it's not about, it must look like this. And if it hasn't manifested in 5 years, I'm doing something wrong. No, you just generate the feelings associated with that ideal day. And the way you feel is your point of attraction. So the feelings you generate from within generate your reality. So your reality has to shift to match those feelings. It has to align with those feelings that you're putting out into the universe. And essentially then you just go, okay, whatever that looks like, I'm open to it, because we never know for sure. Sadhguru talks about this, which is, he always says, be glad that life doesn't turn out exactly as you want it to. Because we have this idea of, I want my life to look this way. I want to be a millionaire. I want to have this huge business. I want to be traveling the world. But actually, if you were to live that life, it might not be quite as you envisaged it. Where you're better off just going, okay, I'll generate these feelings and life. I'll let universe. I'll let you decide how the life looks and what's best for me. It might be that you build a huge business and you're like, actually, this is a lot of overwhelm and stress and responsibility. Or you might spend a life traveling the world and you might realize, actually, I really could crave some stability at this time. So it really is about just, okay, generate the feelings, let the universe decide exactly how it falls into place. So I like the fact that we've touched on that towards the end there. Just before we finish, I like to ask this question. If somebody's listening to this now and they're in that place where you were, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago, they're listening to this, they're going, you know what? I'm feeling that call to purpose, to some more, fulfillment in my work, but I'm in this corporate environment. I feel stuck because I need the wage for my family or whatever, or to pay the bills, etc. Is there one piece of advice you could give that person right now to just take a small step in the right direction, or more aligned direction?
I think it would be exactly that. What small thing can I do today that aligns, what small action will align with my intention and my goal? What small thing can I consciously do today that will align with my intention and goal? And it doesn't have to be, I'm going to go and hand in my notice. It's just, what small thing can I do? And, I know like you're going to, I can't wait for the episode. You're going to talk to somebody about that manifestation, but manifestation is always just the law of attraction. Essentially, we will always, our actions will always follow our intentions, always. So I see myself in this, different role as an entrepreneur and whatever business it is, I see myself there. But what small action can I do today? And it is about those little things. And how can I start with this inner work? Because something meant that you haven't yet done it, and something meant that you haven't quite got there. And why is that? Ask those difficult questions, sit with yourself, and make it priority to do the healing work, to do the inner work. The other thing I would say is have somebody holding space with you, have some help, because it can feel lonely, and then you can feel like, right, I've taken a few steps back. And I think had I had somebody hold my hand a little bit and had somebody guiding me a bit more, I think there are a few things that would have happened a bit differently. So and this has been a lesson for me, so be open to that.
Yeah, I love that. And also you've got to be prepared that you will make mistakes, and there will be failures, if you want to call them that. But if you can just see them as, okay, just opportunities to realign with where I should be at, and so you can, and like I said, there's a big shift. If you can go, oh, great, here's some disappointment, here's some sadness, here's some anxiety, and just go, when you're familiar with the inner work, that stuff is really good stuff to feel through and process it. The journey of personal growth is always bringing up your past trauma, basically. So if you know how to process that stuff and get help with it, gives you a lot of confidence, because ultimately any external challenge basically is, at the core of it, is an internal emotion, basically. And if you know how to be with the present moment of felt experience, then you don't need to fear anything, really. You can just, okay, I'll just sit with this, until it moves through. So you don't have to worry about, okay, what if the business fails? What if I lose my job, or whatever it is? Like, okay, that's just another internal experience. Can I be with it? Can I sit with it and trust that things will align if I do that? It takes a lot of fear away from the journey, definitely.
Absolutely, exactly. It's trusting.
It all works out in our favor. Easy to say, but I know it's a bit difficult in real life. Beautiful. Thanks so much for joining today, Nancy. Where can people learn more about you? Where would you like to direct them to?
I have my Instagram at Kamala Empowerment, and also my webpage, www.kamala.uk. And just reach out. Like you said, I have so many different modalities, and who knows? I've definitely not stopped. So loads of exciting things happening.
That's it, and it's in person. But also,
you do for having me today.
You do physical retreats as well, and you also take people out into nature as well. So it's not just an online thing. This is in person, and obviously you're based. I think you travel back and forth to Wales quite a bit, don't you? So you're kind of, there's various options there in terms of location.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Beautiful. All right, then we'll leave it there for today. I'm sure we'll connect again in the future, because this is work I love to talk about. It's endlessly interesting and fascinating, and we've shared so much together over the years. I'm sure we'll continue to as we grow on this path together. But yes, really appreciate you. Thank you for joining today, Nancy. And hopefully have you back on again soon.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Okay, we'll leave it there. And for anyone, as usual, like to find out more about my work, thebuddhaspot.com, purpose alignment assessment, see how aligned you are right now with your own purpose, inner and outer purpose, as we've been talking about today. So that's a great tool to get you started as well. But yes, we'll stop there today, guys, and I'll be back next week. Bye for now.